Welcome, everyone. Uh, we're on to choose your own adventure. If you remember those stories from when you were like in elementary school, middle school, every now and then you find a book where like a kid or a couple kids would encounter a bear and then be like, hey, what do you want to do? Do you want to run away from the bear or do you want to get closer to it? And then you choose one and then it'd take you to a page. Turn to that page. Okay, now you're running away from the bear and the bear's chasing you. And then like, now what do you want to do? Do you want to go left? Or do you want to go right at the fork on a road? And then you choose right, and then that takes you on the next level of your adventure. Well, that's what we're going to do today. It's the beginning to choosing your own adventure in regards to picking what kind of art you want to look at. I mean, it's not that well thought out. It's not a book that leads you from one door to another, but it's an opportunity for you to discover your own style by looking at your own art that your eyes are attracted to. What I provided for you was about 20 years worth of artists, the last 20 years. I'm not trying to find any artists that are dead, any artists that are no longer making stuff, and no artists that don't have some kind of following. So all of these artists have literature on them. They've been featured on some magazines, some newspapers, some regional attention. They show at galleries. Some of them have artwork at museums. So these are all renowned people. So even though you can find some legit artists on Instagram, some on Facebook, etc., I highly recommend that you work with this list. But if no one is catching your attention on this list, talk to me. I've got I've got a lot more to work with. I've got plenty of, white, black, brown, Native American, Asian, um, uh, Eastern European, Indian, African, you name it, and I may have a better list for you. It's just this is what I could put up for you that captured a pretty worldly view at art. Again, I'm trying to escape from what's taught at all the other schools and teach you something that's more relevant. The way I talk about it always is, if you guys were wanting to become musicians and the only classes offered to learn music and how to play music and how to sing and etc were musicians from 100 to 200 years ago, and that's all the knowledge that you got, then how could you shape yourself into a contemporary musician, meaning a musician now, if all you have for exposure is like the ancient old stuff, old stuff? We're talking classical. What about Mozart and Beethoven? Like, that stuff will help you, but it may not be able to sculpt you into the musician that you want. So I'm trying to sculpt you guys into artists. Everything that you're learning now, I wish I would have learned when I was a kid. So that's how I handle my classes, and I hope you're getting a little bit of that and understanding that. So let's get started. The next thing you'll see is an interactive page like the rest of this micro course. It's all been interactive pages. It still says choose your own adventure. Up top, different name, choose your own style, same project. It's just identifying and trying to find your own way at discovering an artist. First thing you're going to do is hit step 1 and watch me talk to you, okay? All right, so this demonstration talks about like how to accomplish what you're going to accomplish. I will show you some examples. I have some pictures that you could look at of sample work of my two artists that I researched. But let's get to it. Next thing you're going to do is click on directions. So this part right here is identifying my individual art vocabulary by finding art that interests me. Again, if you're not really entitled to like looking at art all the time, if that's not like what you do, then it's really important that you look at all these different artists that I have, just click on them, look at their artwork, answer those 4 points. When you're looking at them in your head, just be thinking about like, oh, who is Bisa Butler? Who is Swoon? Who is Banksy? Who is Yayoi Kusama? Who is, just look at the list, appreciate it, and try to figure out why Martinez is putting this artist in front of your face. Secondly, don't brush it off. When you look at artists that are working with materials that you're not familiar with, that you just didn't associate as art, entertain it and figure out why the heck the art world respects it and why you should give it a second look. All right, so A, click on one of the artist filters, the medium, the theme, the ethnic, race, or ethnicity or race, or view all artists. B, you're going to choose 2 artists to research and critique. So look at all of them before you decide on your 2. Please, please, please. C, I'm gonna fill out a sketchbook page with notes and doodles about each artist. So one page for artists, one page for the artist. That's one page per artist, like it says. D, each artist name on the slideshow is clickable. Read about one of the artists from the link provided in the Google slideshow while I read or watch the YouTube video, take notes on my sketchbook, write notes in my own words and in as few words as possible. Notes may be full sentences if you want, but bullet points are just fine. You're recording information for yourself, not for Mr. Martinez. You're going to click here for specific note-taking requirements. We'll talk about those in a little bit. 3, Google search for any other information about the artist and document my sources by writing a link I use somewhere on my visual arts journal page. So if you decide to say, hey, like, I want to know more about Swoon, but I didn't find out her real name, and that answers one of my questions, then Google it, find out who they are. If you want to figure out who is their biggest inspiration, and you didn't find it in the YouTube video, then Google it, find out who that person was. Number 4, draw 3 or 4 artist references, their artwork or a portrait of them or their inspiration, scenes from a documentary I watched about them, etc. I'll show you how I handled both of my artists and what I decided to draw in relation to them. These do not have to be masterpieces. The more you draw and the more you want to dig into like the style and the look, and if you want to draw in like an hour-long drawing, be my guest, but you don't have to do that. By all means, I respect your time. I'm just really the main picture here is learning about art and artists. 5, complete one visual arts journal page per artist research. I had to make sure you understand that. This is a pretty much your only project or activity for today. So please see it through and do the full thing. And then submit a photo of your notes by emailing them to Mr. Martinez. What I do want to see is you completing a full page worth of composition. So even if it's notes, figure out where you're going to put them. Even if it's a drawing, figure out where those drawings are going to go. And as you assemble it, try to make it look good. Okay, we're working on art. Even when you're sketching, you should be thinking about how you assemble things. All right, so the medium. Medium is a material that an artist used to create work. It's how they express themselves. So if you think of pencil, that's a medium for some. If you think of paint and paintbrush, that's a medium for some. If you think Sharpie, that's a medium for some. Watercolors, acrylics, spray paint, your voice, an instrument, charcoal, clay, marble, wood. So whatever people work with to create, that is a medium. So if you want to look at artists dissected by medium, so let's look at some painters. Let's look at some drawers. You can click on that and you should be able to check it out. Mixed media art. So if you're looking at artists that work with clay and acrylic paint and then put them together, then that's a mixed media artist. If you're looking for an artist that assembles wood structures or draws on doors, on actual like old used drawers, then that's a mixed media artist, right? A sculptor, so someone that just pieces things together and sculpts them out of clay or out of, like in this little picture, it's a skateboard. Other means a medium that wasn't really mixed media, sculpting, drawing, or painting. It could be something like an artist who works like a spray paint artist, or someone that sculpts with bubble gum. I don't know. I made that up. And lastly, conceptual. Conceptual means that they use whatever material they can find to express themselves successfully. So in one project, they may be just painting on a wall. But for the next project, they may be using, like in this picture, some fluorescent lighting. If for the next art piece, they may be using a car or car parts to sculpt something. So just finding parts and assembling what they need to use to be able to express themselves successfully. All right, so those are mediums broken down into 5 different categories. Click and go on an adventure and try to look at some artists using those mediums. Next thing is theme. So theme is pretty unique and distinct. All right, so theme means what are they trying to tell you, right? Like that's number 2, it's the context. And the context is going to be different for every single artist. For some artists, it may be perspective. Perspective means trying to show you what they see through their eyes. It could also be fictional. So it's like if I'm inventing an entire scene, like this is the story I'm inventing like a story that's like a movie that's entirely made up with characters that don't exist. That's perspective. They're making you see what they want you to see, and that's their focus. Okay, so notice that some of these themes make like kind of crossover, because the next theme is social political, a theme of social political focus. It's power dynamics. So it's the have and the have nots. It's, people that are struggling, that are held in detention centers, or, you know, painting a picture of a king or a president, current or future, and kind of depicting them and how you feel about them. It could be something about, LGBTQ rights. It could be something about, minority rights. It could be something about um, blue lives or black lives, things like that. No, I'm not picking one side. I'm saying that you can express yourself, and you can express yourself freely. We're going to look at it through critical eye. We can have a conversation. It's okay if we disagree. I just want to see what your beliefs are and what really matters to you. So express yourself. And then lastly, production. Production is the hardest to explain because um, you create things with every artwork that you make. But production has to do with the process of making something, to be involved in the making process. It has nothing to do with the end result. The end result matters at the end because you get to display it, you get to share it. But artists that just do to explore, and with an open-ended mind, or it's like an open-ended concept where maybe they're getting people to pose, and every time they pose they take a picture and they use that picture for something. Or like in the example of JR, which you'll meet pretty soon here when we look through the slides. JR uses he has a vehicle and he drives it around like all the states, but he also travels all over the world, and he gets people to kind of give their goofiest face or their most serious face, and then he likes to share that with the rest of the world at that location to show how human everybody is. So if you put, a Republican next to a Democrat and you make them laugh, like genuinely laugh, you can't tell the difference. Like we both, like everybody laughs, So it's showing people that we have more similarities than differences. But it's an open-ended process because he doesn't know he's gonna take a picture of. He doesn't know how that artwork's going to be displayed at the end and how people are going to interact with it. Interacting with the art piece is part of the art piece, So that's production, and I can explain it to you a little bit more thoroughly. If you have questions about it, please reach out. I'll try to define these somewhere. Race and ethnicity. It's really important to connect with art, and oftentimes it's a lot easier when you see artwork that looks like you and sounds like you. So I've generated a variety of artists here, kind of broken down by ethnicity or race. It's not a comprehensive list. If your interests lie in a different ethnicity or race, let me know. There's also, sexual preference. There's also regional preference. There's also, there's just so many ways to break down art. And this is just one way, but it definitely helps people kind of narrow down their scope of what they're trying to find and what they're trying to connect to. And then there's a see all option. In the see all option, you get to see all the artists. That's the one we're going to look at. Feel free to explore. But we're going to click on see all. All right, here we go. So choose an artist. It's the research project, choose your own adventure. So if you click, it's going to take you to the first artist. Here you're getting a mix of about 38 artists. I just want you to kind of flip through and try to figure out what these artists are about. It's like Bisa Butler, who works with quilt and pattern, but also with paint. It's a beautiful way to kind of lay out art. So that's a mixed media artist. Candy Wiley, who just paints in oil. He's been venturing with sculpture lately. Swoon, who's a printmaker, so she would be found in the other. She prints these large-scale prints that take up an entire kitchen floor. She carves them out of wood and then prints them onto paper, kind of like you would like a printer or think of a stamp. And then she sticks it to a wall, whatever paper that she just printed, she glues it to a wall using wheat paste, kind of like Obey does, and then she hand paints certain features to accentuate and to elevate the art piece. Beautiful artist, love her work. One of my favorites. Emilia Cruz, one of my other favorites. She's featured in the Netflix show Gentefied. Amazing artist, capturing the lifestyle of Los Angeles and Los Angeles natives. Here we go. Thomas Detour Evans, a great muralist, the date farmer. So anytime you click on here, it's going to take you to an article or a YouTube video. So you want to click their name to find out more. Chiharu Shiota, who has these really great concepts of using often yarn string to connect the ground to the sky, but using some deeper thoughts. I want you to really check out why and how he comes up with these ideas. Tamam Mazam, who takes pictures of his destroyed Syria from all the bombings and war that happens, and then he portrays, often displays or paints beautiful classical paintings to bring attention to the craziness that is his home country, and how beautiful it can be, but at the same time, it's just so upside down. As we proceed, you may see a few artists added. And then you have to go back to the lesson. Make sure you click on back to day 6. If you want to see all the days and the daily tiles, you click on the second one, back to home. And what you have here is obviously your steps and your direction. Make sure that you try to follow through and complete both sketches thoroughly. Try to create the composition as you see here. All right, here we go again. So so you've watched the video. The next thing is to click on directions. But here, what I want to show you is click here to see examples of those 2 sketches again. All right, what we got here is Justin Bua. Justin Bua is an artist from New York. He is inspired by hip hop and its creation. He was actually a graffiti artist when he was a kid. But what we have here is someone who ended up going to school, learning how to really express himself, all that craft practice and his ability to draw people and city and all that. Well, he turned it around and used his hip hop inspiration to paint in what looks like a Harlem Renaissance style, with his own animated twist. And so he covers a lot of artwork related to, DJing, rapping, breakdancing, definitely a lot of hip hop influence. And he paints other things too. Lately when Kobe Bryant passed away, immediately, by the next day, he had this beautiful painting of Kobe dunking with beautiful heavenly clouds behind him. So the questions you're going to ask yourself are, you're going to find 5 questions to ask while watching the video or while reading the article. It's a who, what, when, where, why, and how. Those questions are the 6 questions that you can click the link and find out a little bit more about them. But, so what? That's the thing. I'm not going to tell you what to ask. You have to come up with your own questions. This is what a good researcher, a good news reporter does. And it's something that was taught to me when I was in elementary school. I never forgot it for some reason. So what? What is Justin Bua's ethnicity? What is his background in art? What is his favorite thing to paint? What materials does he use? What does he look like? I don't know. Just ask a what question and then answer it on paper in your sketch page. Why? Why did Justin Bua focus on hip hop? Why does he paint the way he does? Why does he use both hands? If you read the article or watch a video and you keep watching videos, you'll find out that whenever he sketches, he draws with both hands at the exact same time. And there's an answer for that. Where does he live? That's why I drew those city skyline in the background. It's supposed to represent New York City and their tall buildings, the skyscrapers. And notice how I wrote in the buildings. This is one of those ideas where you want to think about composition and where things belong. As I was writing the first one up here, the what, I realized that I was missing out an opportunity to write in the buildings. And so I shifted it over. But where is a question you're going to have to come up with your own, and then answer it. So where is he from? Where did he go to school? Where does he keep his pencils? I don't know. I made that question up, and not that it's, but make sure it's a question that matters. So if you think of something like when is this project over? That's not asking a genuine question, trying to figure out more about Justin Bua. So make sure that you use questions that actually do give you some definitive knowledge about the artist. How, how does he create? How does he come up with his ideas? How did he know he was going to be an artist for the rest of his life? There are answers. You may have to Google them. You don't have to stick with the article or YouTube video that I provided for you. Who is Justin Bua? Who is his biggest inspiration? Who is the character he paints the most? Who was his favorite art piece? Oops, I just realized that this is open. All right, and on the right you have JR. So I've gone through the material that I provided for you, and I captured a little bit about JR, the photographer artist. He's like an artivist, what they call an artivist is someone who goes out and does things to like with the social awareness kind of focus. So he's a photographer, but he's more of a conceptual artist, or if you go back to the different themes, he's a someone that focuses on production, not so much the product. I started by drawing this close-up of a person in his photographs. Then I drew in this fence because I really like this piece of a little child looking over the border in the south of the U.S., the Mexican American border. And this hill kind of was part of the picture. And then I'm like, I could draw another JR reference, but I kind of really like how recognizable he is. So I drew JR, the artist himself. And then that was enough, right? 3 to 4 references. Then I have to answer a who, a what, a when, where, why, how. And again, playing with how you can write that around the composition is part of visual play, part of you learning how to assemble things. So that's the note-taking part. But also while you're going through the motions, while you're going through this assignment, make sure that you do check those questions that you do want to ask. So my bad. So right here, what says, when you take notes of who, what, when, where, why, how, it's got little descriptions of each one of those right here. Make sure that you go to that link to help you out, okay?